coming up?
Very much. Well, in classical Kabbalah, in texts like the Zohar, if our listeners know a little bit about this, or the Bahir, Sefer Yetzirah, it is said that in the beginning of creation, so out of that eternity, God unfolds in, and it's described in two words or terms. It's bohu, it means the void. So God makes of itself like a womb or a space. And that's goodness, because it can be filled with goodness. But the goodness has to or needs a contrast. So also the tohu, or the chaos, which is also related to the evil side, is created. Not because it's bad, but it is opposed to
the counterpart, the
of the stillness and the emptiness. Exactly. And this is the basis of all creation. So if, for one, you and I would try to push away one of these sides because we have a certain personal preference from whatever background we have.
Yes, of course.
Well, according to Kabbalah, we deny or repress something which is of a cosmic order. And therefore, Kabbalah has always been very affirmative to inclusivity. So also, indeed, the evil aspect, so to speak, also metaphysical evil aspect in the universe. And if you do not want to acknowledge it within you, it will have the greatest power over you.
Hello, Synchronauts. How are you? Welcome to our second Elysian Round Table session. Originally, this was going to be just another interview for my friend and now co-host, Mike Bais, my teacher, my guide. Welcome. How are you, Mike?
I'm very well, thank you. It's really good to be here again.
Yeah, so now this is going to be something that we're going to do once a month. We will see how everything flows, but I want to give you all the warmest of welcomes, and we will continue the conversation. We were talking about Kabbalah and quantum physics, and the conversation got so interesting, you know, and so full of information that from the 11 questions I originally had planned for the one interview, there were 11, and we just talked about 3 of them. And so we thought, why not make it like a series of conversations, and we will be talking not only about Kabbalah, but we will also be talking about, what else, Mike? Tell us, what else can we be talking about in our roundtables?
Oh, well, yeah, if the opportunity is there, we can also make certain connections with the roundtable concept. I hope the listeners are into that.
Yeah, of course.
So that's another thing that I teach, as some people may know. And it's easy to combine the metaphysics with the round table.
Yeah,
so we'd love to do that.
We have tons and tons of things to talk about, so that's why we decided, why not make it like a series of conversations. And so this will be only uploaded on YouTube. So if you, as a viewer, you're watching this recording, you have any questions you want to ask Mike, you can also leave it in the comments, and then we will make sure that Mike gets them, and then we can discuss a little bit more about it. So I hope that this will be not only a conversation between the both of us, but also including other people who might also have questions for you, but maybe they haven't had a chance to interact with you, or I don't know, but this is a safe space to do so. So I'm very happy to begin this adventure officially now as a continuing conversation. So thank you so much, Mike, for saying yes to this, bringing together the Circle of Avalon and Mexxicamelot. This is interesting because we are talking about the same themes, each one from our different points of view. You're talking from the point of view of Kabbalah, and I'm going to be talking also a little bit about the Galactic Mayan synchronometer, or known as like in the world as a Mayan calendar, but this is like the new version by Jose Arguelles. Everything is so connected. That's what many of us are discovering. So it's good that we come together and talk about these topics. And so and the reason why we began these roundtables, I want to show you, because, well, I've got here Okay, might be a little bit hard for me to show the book because I have the background. There it is. So this book is the reason why we began this conversation. Well, this is part 1. Mike wrote it. So if anybody wants to order your book, you can do it directly with Mike or on Amazon and Barnes and Noble. And also digitally, you have it available at many other online like digital platforms, right? And this arrived last week. This is the second part of this Kabbalistic point of view on science. So the information we're going to be discussing today is actually coming from some of the materials that you were teaching here or sharing with us here. Yes?
Yes.
So I'm going to stop talking because now it's like I'm talking all the time. And now
I'm still here.
And now it's your time to share with us, Mike. So last session, we were talking a little bit about consciousness, and we were talking about how the tree begins its manifestation. We were talking about the 3 previous spheres, the Ein, the Ein Sof, and the Ein Sof Out. And we're talking about how creation is called forth from Atzilut. But I'm going to bring back a quote that I said last time to bring this question. And I think it might be very helpful for a lot of people, because when we are incarnate, we feel separate from each other and also from God, or however you want to call the creator. So you say, although we may feel divided in the world of action and space-time phenomena, unity and wholeness are always here. So why is it that we must feel this division from source when we are incarnate in Asia? Why do we feel this division? Why is it like we know it's connected, but we don't feel it sometimes, and we get desperate because you're like, I'm alone, like what is happening in this case?
Yes, well, this is a very age-old problem, so to speak, an existential problem. And all the religions and spiritual traditions are dealing with this problem in their own specific way. And in Kabbalah, they say there is this primordial world, the divine world, which is Atzilut. And that's the eternal world. And if we say eternal, we do not mean time and space. So the eternity has nothing to do with time and space. It is, so to speak, the stillness or the silence as a backdrop of the phenomena of time and space. And that world, that tree in Kabbalah, is called Atzilut. And it means, one of the things it means is near to God, because God is beyond existence. So this world of eternity, that tree, that's the eternal tree. Now, if nothing would develop out of eternity, there would be no time and space. There would be no unfolding existence. Of course. And we wouldn't be having this conversation, for example. There would be no history, no future. There would only be that now that a lot of people are talking about. And therefore, out of that world of eternity, there unfolds a will, it is said, the will to become. And then they say God contracts, as it were, and creates a space to be in. And that's, in Kabbalistic terms, the Tzimtzum, or the lightning flash. And then time and space comes into being, an alternating movement of light, a concept of light. Instead of just being eternal, now there's a movement from one thing to another. And this idea shapes the existent time-space relationship in the universe, or in the universa, you know,
yes, because now we know that there are many different universes coexisting, the multiverse, they're talking about it, no?
Exactly, yeah. So a consequence of our experience of duality, of the alternating movement in time and space, this is where we are born into when you are incarnated.
Yes.
You make your first, breathing upon this earth. You are born into duality.
Yes.
And this world affirms the dualistic experience all the time through our physical body, through the psyche. It's you and me, and this goes on and on and on. And because of this, we forget about eternity, which is not somewhere else. It is indeed exactly now and here. So what needs to be done is it needs to be remembered or refound. And that's the work of the Kabbalists. That's the way of return, as they sometimes call it. Now, if I can just elaborate a little bit upon this, because in quantum physics, they say that although it seems that in the quantum reality, you have or a wave or a particle, and with this they say, which is a dualistic idea in itself,
yes,
they say, or something is a wave, it means like a field of possibilities,
or
something is a particle.
And so it has already collapsed into reality.
Exactly, it's an existing thing in itself. But it's not as simple or dualistic as this. They say these two things coexist at the same time. So, and that brings us to this same Kabbalistic idea that although things are dualistic in our experience, but they are here at the same time, always.
You know, it makes me think a little bit about like our eyes. We have two eyes.
Yes.
To see the whole of reality, but the reality is one. It's not like you have two eyes because reality is, you have two realities and then you bring it into one. What is exactly. I don't know why this idea came to my mind. Like maybe that's what it is, no? We see this apparent duality because we are so low down in density that this is how we experience it. But in reality, what is sustaining everything is unity.
Well, it's shall not be a coincidence that our physical senses come in pairs, not just the eyes, but the ears, the nostrils, touch, a hand. So it seems to be that it has to work that way.
Yeah, so that we can navigate through this experience of duality with these pairs all up, because you were just saying about like in our bodies, we have the duality, but also just talking about time and space, the fact that we have day and night. You know, and right now, for example, we are recording this at the end of June 2022. We just went through this special date of the solstice. So while in the northern hemisphere we're having the solstice for the summer, in the southern hemisphere they're having the solstice for the winter, and it's coexisting at the same time, like this duality. You know, so I think that's really, really interesting to be mindful of that thing.
Very much, and that's why it's so important that we regard time as a relative and very subjective experience, not something which is objective in itself. You know, I mean, if you leave the Earth and you're walking on the moon, or supposedly we could live on Mars, we have a completely different sense of time.
Definitely.
Yeah, it's very relative.
Exactly. Yeah, because like just imagine now the idea of day and night on Earth would have certain measurement, but in Mars it's different because the planet has a different kind of the size is different, its rotation and also its translation around the sun. So all of this really has an impact on how you're going to, depending on how you move through space, you're going to be experiencing time. But also there is that inner time, as you were saying, no? Because I hope that people who are listening to us right now, they think like time is going by so fast because this is so interesting. Instead of, oh, this is so boring, when they will finish speaking, no? That talks about that inner relativity of time, no? When you say you're enjoying something so much, like let's say it's the same 60 minutes for everybody, but somebody is having so much fun and it's like, it went by just like this. And for others, it's just like, oh my God, 5 minutes. Oh my God, why is it so slow? No. So maybe we have these two senses, no, the inner time, and then also like the external time that is there for everybody according to how you're moving in space. No?
Exactly, and that is definitely something very well described in Kabbalistic metaphysics in the four worlds. So you have the lowest world of Asiya, which is the world of physical existence with its own time measurement, so to speak. That's ticking time. That's our clock and our watch. And our complete body is dependent upon that measurement of time, which we have described in minutes and in hours and days, etc. According to the seasons, we move our being.
Yes.
That's physical existence. But indeed, you have also psychological time, even from different inner perspectives. You have dream time, you have daily consciousness time, ego conscious time measurement, etc., etc. And even you are able to experience time from a cosmic or Briatic point of view.
Okay. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Yes, definitely. I mean, it's not so far away as so abstract as you might think. But you may see or you have a certain personal problem. And you can look at it from a physical perspective and a psychological perspective, an ego perspective. This is what happens most of the time anyway.
Yeah, definitely.
This is just the way it goes for us most of the time. Now, one shift or level higher, you can look at it from a higher psychological perspective, which would be the Tiferet of yourself. And that is the observing or the silent witness who observes the same problem at the same time. And one shift, again, into the Briatic world is to see the same problem in a much grander perspective, so a bigger context, involving much more than you alone, and also involving more time. So not just a little microscopic view of our little ego, but to see it in a grander context.
Could it be more like a context of fate or destiny, and how what you're doing is going to impact?
Exactly what I'm talking about. Yes.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. And the Kabbalistic work is that all these perspectives should be taken into account. So, you know, the cosmic perspective is not per se the only thing that we should have, but if we can align all these perspectives in one, yes, exactly. Yeah.
And definitely to be able to achieve that understanding, you have to talk about timelessness and the eternal here and now, as you were saying, because we live such short lives. If we talk about the big cycles of the universe and creation and the cosmos, we live just like it's nothing. And so we have no way sometimes to know what destiny is about in a greater scale, because we're so focused on our problems, immediate problems, that we don't even think about it. But then what I'm understanding, what I'm gathering is through Kabbalistic work, you can start having glimpses of that, even though you will not live such a long time, talking about thousands of years or hundreds of thousands of years, right? But you still can have a glimpse and see how you are part of creation and how what you do has an impact as well.
Very much. Yes. And there you go again. From our physical and ego perspective, it seems that we do not live very long in comparison to the universe.
Yeah.
But from a cosmic perspective, you know, 5 years maybe not a very long time relatively, but it may have a huge impact on the universe.
Wow. Okay.
So in that sense, quantity of age and time is not per se a measurement of what influence you have on your own life and on the cosmic whole. Not at all.
Yes, because sometimes, like, I think about when, and maybe people who are listening to us right now might have had those experiences when you have many years of stable life, and then suddenly everything turns around, just matter of 1 year, and you change so much, and you're like, I can't recognize myself. And it's such a short period of time that brings so much transformation. So I think that would fall into this category, right?
It definitely does. Yes.
This is,
and
wow.
I had a conversation with someone, well, more than one person, but recently, and the person told me, I don't think that my personal path is going very quickly. I'm making these little baby steps and so frustrating. And I said, well, try to look at it from a different perspective. You know, what do these steps have consequences outside of your own life? You know, to your family, your children, your work. What will happen in, you know, a year's time or 2 years' time? What will it influence in the sense of the past? Because it does.
Yeah, definitely.
And with the most people, it opens their eyes and something shifts, something happens there. And most people will see then that it's not just the little chain of action reaction, you know, of the instant experience, but also about a larger frame of time and consequences.
And sometimes what happens, because that has happened to me, is like that, because I've gotten frustrated in my path, be that I'm doing psychological work or now that I'm learning Kabbalah with you. But like I'm just like that. We get desperate. We're like, nothing is changing, and I'm depressed, or I'm sad, or I'm very angry, and then suddenly something shifts, something changes, and then there is a lot going on afterwards, and you're like, everything happened so fast. But it's not really that. It was kind of like a domino effect because of those baby steps that you took, and then what do you think about it? Does this make sense?
No, and it's very natural as a human being, in the sense of, you know, that ego perspective, even in spiritual work, is that we have expectations.
Yes.
Or
yes.
And so if they are not being fulfilled or whatever, then, you know, we are in trouble or we are disappointed, etc. That's why there's a saying in Kabbalah, is that you do the work for the work itself. So that's of course an act of dedication there.
Yes.
So you do the Kabbalistic work for the tradition and the teaching, not for yourself. And to be honest, most people do not start off with that idea.
No, I can tell you I haven't done it that way either. Wow.
And that's natural in a sense. I mean, we all work also for that other part of us, which we in psychology call the ego.
Yeah.
But if we can combine it, we can also say, all right, I do not have to control this spiritual work and the consequences or the effects that come out of it, but I deliver, you know, I just invest in this kind of work. And I mean investment in the sense of spiritual investment, of course, not financial.
Sometimes financial, because you buy the books. Go buy the books, please. Remember, these are good books.
Yeah, that part is okay, but yeah, exactly. But that's a very good balancing point on the vertical axis on the tree, is that if we also incorporate the higher face on the tree of life, the upper part, we also dedicate our inner work to the teaching itself.
You know, it's interesting. I'm sorry, I'm going to interrupt you a moment, because this makes me think about when you just you surrender, and then you say, okay, I'm doing this for the work, I'm doing this for the tradition, those who came before me, those who will come after me. At the same time, you're taking off this load of I should be so perfect, or I should be, because it's something that nags, or it has been nagging me lately, like I'm still falling into these little like traps, psychological traps or ego traps or whatever. I'm like, why? I should be doing better, no? Talking about I'm trying to measure things according to me. But if I go according to the tradition, then I'm just like, okay, it's just a process, and I'm just gonna let it be, and nobody's expecting anything from me. I'm just doing it for love. No?
That's it, yeah. And well, you know, we have to re-educate our own ego in a spiritual sense, and raise it. And just it has to get used to a different lifestyle, so to speak, a different consciousness, and it has to learn that what we expect and what we want from life, most of the time it's not going to happen anyway. So you better be at peace. Exactly. But just better be with you know, in peace with it, and just, you know, accept that something else is running the show.
Definitely. Again, that's a surrender.
Yes,
Definitely.
exactly. Yeah. And we have a little bit of playing space there, you know, some space to move in this ground universe. But the Kabbalist who is well on the way, he and she knows that, okay, I'm going to work in accord with this law, this universal law, of which I am a part.
Yeah.
And I live in accord with those laws and with that movement, with that flow.
Yeah.
And that will happen. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Because like when I was having a lot of crisis, like over a year ago, I found the work of Byron Katie. Maybe you've heard about her, but like what she says is stop fighting reality because you're gonna lose. And I'm like, yeah, that's true. Like I want to change things or I want to change people. And I mean, things are what they are. So if there are universal laws you know about, then why do you like, can you fight gravity? Like gravity is going to pull you, whether you believe in gravity or not, you know? So are you gonna fight it? Okay, try, but you're gonna get tired and it's not gonna work.
That's it.
And I really appreciated that from her because I was like, damn, this is right. Like, and every time I wanted to fight reality, I would start laughing because I'm like, this is absurd. Why should I go against, like, if there are some laws and through Kabbalah, we get to know these laws and we start aligning with them to live a better life. And would that be the Tzimtzum that you were talking about, this energy bringing back things together? Can you tell us a little bit more about it?
Definitely. Yeah. Well, the Tzimtzum coming down the tree is the unfolding path of creation, or the divine coming into existence. In a beautiful poetic way, the Kabbalist says that God actually puts on a garment, and or 10 garments as the 10 Sephiroth unfold. And then when creation is being formed and made, the human being seems to have a special task, and the soul is able to traverse that path of the Tzimtzum, of the lightning flash, but then in the reverse order back to the source. Now, and that is the spiritual path in general. You know, you don't have to be a Kabbalist to walk that path, but the Kabbalist has this metaphysical idea how to do that. And that is your daily life as well. But Kabbalist walks that path consciously and willfully. So, and explores the different aspects of life from one side to the other, and always going through the middle.
Coming back to the middle.
3 pillars. Always, of course, yeah, because you try to harmonize everything and to live, like you just said, in accord with law. And one of the laws is the law of duality, but also the law of harmony. So if we work in accord with the universe, everything will go alternating in a dynamic, flowing from one extreme to the other. But we try to complement those extremes within ourselves. So we need that middle there to always balance it out. To
bring balance to the force. Yeah. But also something that I've also learned with you, and I'm very grateful for that, because in many spiritual traditions or groups, especially here in Mexico or in Latin America, they're like, no, you have to be good all the time, and you can't go to the dark side, and you can do that. And that what it makes happen is that people go to the extreme, no? And then you see all of these so-called spiritual groups where people are abusing each other, and the worst of the worst comes out. And I think that that's because we try to deny the shadow so much, or the dark side, that we can't go to the center, we can't go to the middle pillar. But in the tree, you can like experience this duality in a conscious way, because sometimes you will need, and you tell me a lot about Gevurah, for example. You tell me you need more Gevurah, and I'm like, yes, you're right, no? You can't be always expanding. Sometimes you need contraction, and that's not bad, you know? And also we've been talking about cycles, life and death, all of this, it's necessary. And so what I love about the tree is that you get peace of knowing you can experience both sides, both pillars, but then bring it all back to the center. And it's okay if you feel anger or frustration or sadness or fear.
Yeah,
I mean, it's okay. It's if God hadn't intended those things to exist, they wouldn't exist. It's as simple as that.
very much. Well, in classical Kabbalah, in texts like the Zohar, if our listeners know a little bit about this, or the Bahir, Sefer Yetzirah, it is said that in the beginning of creation, so out of that eternity, God unfolds in, and it's described in two words or terms. It's bohu, it means the void. So God makes of itself like a womb or a space. And that's goodness, because it can be filled with goodness. But the goodness has to or needs a contrast. So also the tohu, or the chaos, which is also related to the evil side, is created. Not because it's bad, but it is opposed to
the counterpart, the
of the stillness and the emptiness. Exactly. And this is the basis of all creation. So if, for one, you and I would try to push away one of these sides because we have a certain personal preference from whatever background we have.
Yes, of course.
Well, according to Kabbalah, we deny or repress something which is of a cosmic order. And therefore, Kabbalah has always been very affirmative to inclusivity. So also, indeed, the evil aspect, so to speak, also metaphysical evil aspect in the universe. And if you do not want to acknowledge it within you, it will have the greatest power over you.
Yes, it will show up somehow, and not in a very nice way.
Well, it shows up, like Jung said, mainly through projections of the unconscious, and then it rules the show, and you are not in charge. So one of the parts of the work the Kabbalist is to uncover what is bothering you, sometimes called the Luciferic principle or archetype, and make sure you get it in balance with the light side, or whatever you want to call it. And that's of vital importance for any spiritual work. You know, in Buddhism, they do the same thing. You have a whole choir of angels, but also a whole choir of demons within you. And if you need to recognize them, and every person has their specific, well, you know, legion of angels and demons. That is your psychological composition on the inside. It's very unique, and we need to discover that very much. Yeah, so definitely you're right about it.
Yes, because if you keep denying that, it's gonna like pop up in a really bad way, and you're gonna get hurt, and a lot of people around you can get hurt. So it's good. Like for me, it has made a difference to recognize, you know what, it is okay if sometimes I feel negative emotions, and it's okay because I'm human and I'm meant to experience them. And they're learning tools as well. If I learn how to navigate through them in a way that can be constructive, that I think that's part of the lesson, no? Not only for the Kabbalists, but for anybody.
Very much. Oh yeah, I mean, in most mythologies of the world, the purpose of evil, or the evil archetype, you know, whatever her or his name is to keep the human soul ignorant. So away from the light. This is the game, so to speak, of our spiritual path. So, and if we oppose, not so much oppose evil, but to engage with it, so to go for an introspection and to uncover the masks of evil within us, then there is growth, because we go from ignorance into knowledge.
Yeah, definitely.
And that's what happened to Jesus, or to Buddha, beyond, you know, below the Buddha tree, and or Muhammad. They all are encountering their specific tests and trials, and we
the temptation.
Exactly, yeah. And you don't have to be in a desert or under a tree. we may meet that in everyday life.
Yeah, just driving by and you meet somebody who just like cuts you in and you're like, ah, and then you're like, oh.
Exactly. Yeah.
Oh, that's a test.
Yeah, if we are awake, that is.
Yes, of course. If not, then
it just passes you by, or it gets worse, or whatever.
Yeah, it can be you, because this is interesting. No, when we are incarnate in Asia, we're so connected to our physicality and our emotions. Sometimes, the reptilian brain takes over, and you like your rational mind just like out the window, and you just react. I think that's what makes a big difference. Stop reacting and start deciding how are you going to, because life is not about what happens to you, but how you manage what happens to you, how you react to it. No?
Oh, yes, exactly. And that's the difference between what you say, reaction and responding. If you give a response, that comes from knowledge and self-consciousness and free will. And that also brings up the topic of evil. We don't have to get into that too much, but anyway, this is an important point, I think. We may commit or bring evil into the world from an unconscious level, so out of ignorance, but it also happens that we know that our actions and our decisions will lead to evil, and that is a different level of our karma, and in what way we bring evil into the world. And it has different consequences.
Because if you know that you're doing evil, that like you're doing it with awareness, and so that has different consequences. And I think we'll go at some point in our lives, we are evil in a way because we're not aware. Maybe you're hurting somebody, you're not aware that you're hurting them. So in that case, I mean, no, there is like, it's not the same. It's not justifying, obviously, because a lot of what's going on in the world right now, it's due to ignorance, definitely, a lot of evil. But at the same time, when you are aware and you have consciousness that what you're doing is wrong and you do it anyways, that's not cool.
No, it's not. But again, the human condition is not that black and white, though.
Exactly.
The psyche is extremely dynamic and is fluctuating all the time, like the moon and the sun and all the astrological objects. There are also energies within us. So the interplay between the ego, the body, and our sun or Tiferet, where is also our free will, is always acting out within our psyche. So we may be self-conscious and know that something is not right for us, but the ego itself, our Yesod, is also part of that whole process. And then there's this fight going on, maybe this conflict, this dilemma, and then it's a matter of who wins. And this is in all biblical terms is the fight of Jacob with his angel. But there are different metaphors for this.
It's interesting because, and sometimes I think intuition also plays a bit of a part within this, because sometimes your intuition tells you, no, that is wrong, don't do it, you're gonna get hurt. But the ego is like, no, we have to show that we can do this. And then you let the ego take the reins of your action. And then when things go down and nothing goes well, you're like, why didn't I listen to my intuition? There is also this intelligence in our bodies, right? That
very
guide
much.
us.
Yes. Oh yeah. I mean, we shouldn't, I think, make the mistake that our psyche is outside of our bodies.
Good point.
All the worlds in Kabbalah, they incarnate in and through this physical body. It's not that the higher worlds are somewhere else. That is, I would say, a metaphysical mistake to make, and the Kabbalists never intended this. So all the worlds come down and manifest in this thing. And on the tree behind me, Malkut is the kingdom, and it is the kingdom because all the worlds, they manifest into this physical reality. So everything is here at this moment.
At the same
Eternity
time,
and all the expressions of duality of time and space that we were talking about, all the evil, all the good is here and now. This is the potential to be. And that may bring us back maybe to quantum physics.
Yes.
But this is also the wave, so to speak. This is the eternal background, or the so-called David Byrne called it the implicate order. So everything is implicit in it. And at the same time, this is the explicate order. So everything is collapsed and everything is acting out here as if it is a particle. But
because we're at that level where that happens.
We are, but, and this is the paradox, and this brings us to mysticism in a sense, although that we experience this as a particle phenomena, you know, I'm looking at you, you're looking at me, and this is just a bunch of particles, and we think this is reality. We are talking about reality, but at the same time, now at this very moment, everything is still also in this implicate order of endless potentiality. This is a sea of eternal potential, and anything can just shift any moment into a new expression of reality. But it doesn't happen from one moment to another in our human experience, and this is because our conditionings here.
Our conditionings, can you elaborate a bit more about it? What kind of conditionings?
Well, you know, as long as our psyche and our body is in conformity with the collapsed reality that we experience day by day, there will not be a new collapse in that sea of probabilities within the wave reality behind it.
So when our attention is there and then we don't pay attention to the rest, and that's why we can't. It's like like cables crossing, or I don't know how to explain it. This is so fabulous, and we've talked about this many times before. Sometimes we lack the language to explain the phenomenon because some of this is so abstract. Obviously, when you're trying to talk about the phenomenon that goes on from Absolute, from the highest worlds, we can only approximate it. And I remember so well one of the first times we talked, you and I talked, and you were saying we can only approximate that through the tree, like you cannot look at it directly. And I was like, why not? No, and now I understand. It's because we don't really have the resources or the means, because we are so low in density that, and I think that brings us back to the original question of why do we forget? Precisely because of that, because we are so low in density. It's not that that's not there, it's there, but as we are so inside here, inside a little 3D bubble, exactly, we cut the connection, or we don't know how to connect to that. No, when we first arrive, we forget. We also have this dream spell, we forget our origins, what we are. And I think in a way that it's important to forget, because if not, then we couldn't have the full human experience.
Well, that's the challenge indeed. You know, can we experience all these levels or worlds of reality, and to be as probably, as far as we know, as the Holy One intended it to be, is that there's an expression on different levels, different worlds of reality. And can we, as a Kabbalist, really be in those worlds, and not in some way divide the whole up, you know, into fragments, as it most of the time happens. For us, the quantum reality is the level of the miraculous, as it's described in the scriptures or in certain fairy tales. It is beyond our normal conditioned mind. And then we call it a miracle. But that comes very close to what is described as, you know, quantum reality. It doesn't make sense. It is not in conformity with our, but at the same time, on that same level, it's quite natural. So that's why the saints and sages of old, for them, these things were just the natural phenomena. Yeah, they were spiritual
because they could connect with the higher realms, and then they could just manifest what was going on over there. Like, it's what Jesus did in a way, no? Like, he would just do things, and people were like, how did you do that? And he said, if you're healed, tell nobody, because if not, you go back to the conditioning and you go back to the 3D, and then that connection is kind of lost, no?
Exactly. Yeah, these are most of the time interchanges, but they can also be outward phenomena like healing or changing substances. This is definitely possible. But yeah, that's exactly one of the teachings of Christ. Yeah, as an example. Yeah.
Wow. Well, yeah. I mean, there is so much to understand, no? And working through the three, well, actually the 4 worlds, that helps understand a lot of what we're talking about, right?
Oh yeah, I mean, it's if you look at the tree behind me, that's the tree of life. In it are also 4 worlds. In the beginning, if you study Kabbalah, it makes it a bit difficult, quite an undertaking. But if you persist on that path, it will definitely show you and make sense what we are talking about here, and much more than that. So, but yeah, it really helps you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Mike, is there anything else you would like to share before we start closing up our session for today?
No, I just want to say it goes very fast.
Talking about the time, yeah, how we experience time.
Exactly.
The relativity of time.
Yeah, no, not anything specific. I think that we, in regard to your question, that we have covered quite well what we wanted to say.
The most important basis, yeah.
Yes, and if not, then we may have a question from the listeners, or I may get back to it the next time.
Yeah, sure.
Remember something that should have been said, and
okay, that's good. Like, because all the questions are going to be connected as you are writing about these topics in your book. So there is a part where you talk about quantum physics, like, because I have the book here with me physically at last. And so there is this part where actually that's what I reread that part to check out some of the questions. And so you're talking about these things on chapter 4. You're talking about the 4 worlds, precisely, about time. And we're talking also about the Tzimtzum and quantum consciousness. And so we will be continuing talking about all of these topics, and you guys should really order this book because it's so good. And then if you read the book and then you come listen to us, to these conversations, then many things are going to start clicking a bit easier, because I'm definitely basing for now our conversations on Mike's teachings. So I want to thank you so much, Mike, for doing this second round table. It's very interesting, a very, very interesting conversation. And I'm really looking forward to see what else we're going to be talking about, and also wait for people's comments or questions so that you can expand our questions, so that we can keep on wondering, like, what is my purpose in all of this? How can Kabbalah help me understand my path and my mission, and who am I? So I want to thank you so much for doing this with us today.
Completely my pleasure. Thank you for the opportunity.
Well, thank you, Synchronauts, for sharing these few minutes or many minutes with us. And so we will see each other next month for sure. We will continue this conversation about quantum physics and Kabbalah and science. Thank you so much, Mike. So we will see each other very soon. Take care. See you soon, Synchronauts.
Thank you.
Bye.